Now, some bikes really do let it all hang out when it comes to cables and controls up front. So today we're going to have a look how to neaten your cockpit on your e-bike. Now, many bikes do have a nest of overly long cables up front on the bike. And that is because when a manufacturer orders their cables, they do it for sizes from small to extra large. So a bike is small size, you're probably going to get cables which are kind of hanging out up the front. But we're not going to focus on that today. That's for a separate video, how to trim down your cables. Today, we're simply going to focus on your controls and how to neaten those up. Now, many bikes in the market come with separate clamps for both the brake lever and the shifter lever. However, if you're lucky enough to run a Shimano or SRAM system on your bike, you can actually get custom mounts, which mean you can put the brake and the shifter in one location on each side of your handlebar. Now, Shimano uses a system called the iSpec, which connects the shifter to the brake. However, SRAM, like we've got on the bike here, uses Matchmaker. Now, you can buy the Matchmaker clamp aftermarket, but the great thing about Matchmaker is it means you can adjust all the angles. You can adjust the shifter in relation to the brake, and crucially, you can adjust inboard or outboard where your shift lever is. Now, sometimes I get like cuts on my knuckles because the shifter is simply too close to my knuckles. But with Matchmaker, you can actually shift that shifter inboard, which is a far more comfortable position in your on your cockpit. Now, the next question you're going to ask is, what if you've got a Shimano brake and a SRAM shifter? Well, there's an adapter on the market called Trickstuff, which allows you to do just that. But before we go into some details on tidying things up here with, say, the Shimano system, I think the first thing to bear in mind is how exactly do you hold on to your brakes, and what's the shape of your body. So that's what you need to bear in mind before you start adjusting your cockpit area. So today we're going to be looking at my Canyon Spectral on as an example of how to neaten your cockpit, but also some idea on how you use your controls when you're on the trail. And I think this is probably a good example for any Shimano E8000 system owners. Now, before I start, I'd just like to say, when I'm riding down through terrain which is sort of undulating, I'm constantly going through the seat dropper, up and down on the seat dropper, and also changing through the gears. It's very rare that I switch through the mode button. So yeah, it's up and down through the gears and up and down on the seat post. So those are my two main controls, which I want to make sure are in the correct position. Now, a little bit of a tip here for people running the Shimano E8000 system, which uses a Di2 style shifter to go from Eco, Trail and Boost mode. Now, I really like to use a shifter style lever for adjusting my dropper post. And as you can see, if you try to mount this with a Di2 shifter, then it leads to pretty heavy traffic in that area. So what do you do about it? I think there's a couple of ways to go about this. Now, as you can see on this bike, we haven't got a shifter style lever for my dropper post, but one which is mounted on the top there, and there you can go. That means that you can access your dropper post and your Di2 shifter on the hoof pretty easily. Now, I know some of you might actually want to put your dropper on the right hand side, but I highly recommend that you try to get the dropper left hand side, shifters on the right hand side, just so when you're moving, when you're climbing on your e-bike, they're really easy to access. Now, the second way to tackle the issue of shifting up front is to use a different shifter to the Di2. Now, I think we've all got our preferences when it comes to shifting, and I really rate this Shimano E6000 shifter. As you can see, there's an up button and a down button. Now, Shimano also do an E7000 shifter, which is two black buttons, but I think this is pretty hard to fault, because when you mount this together with a shifter style seat dropper adjuster, it's absolutely so easy to use when you're on the trail. Now, I was absolutely terrified when this E6000 unit arrived in the post, simply because it's got a lead to it, and I was thinking, how on earth do I attach that? And it's actually really simple. All you do is take your grip off, take your seat dropper and brake lever off, then slide the Di2 shifter off after you've unplugged it from the head unit. Simple as that. There's a little end there. All we're doing is replacing that end for that end. Now, we've actually swapped out to a bike that we sorted the cockpit out on earlier, and as you can see, we've got the E6000, which is tucked up neatly to the grip. Then we've got the brake lever, and then we've got the Crank Brothers dropper. Now the cool thing about the E6000 is it's super low profile, so if you do come off, then it's not going to take any knocks. Here we've got the Di2 bands, which keeps the electric cable in place. Now you need to be really careful with that electric cable because it can sometimes come out if you get in a bit of a crash, and it might just pop out of the header unit there. So keep an eye on that one. I think the Di2 bands are absolutely bang on to keep that in place. Right, so you've got your controls sorted out on your handlebar and your cockpit area. We'll move on now to the cables on your bike. Right, let's have a look at 5 different ways of neatening the cables on your cockpit of your bike. As you can see, this bike has had some electrical tape to join the rear brake to the seat dropper plus the header unit lead. Now the next system of connecting your cables are these little S-clips. There you go. Super neat, and I guess they're pretty flexible, so that means when the bike is moving, they move with the cable. So dead easy to fit. Just clip it on there, clip it on there. Boom! Look at that, absolutely easy. And as I say, when the bike moves, that moves with it, so it's pretty dynamic. Now the third technique is something that mimics the S-clip, and all you do is get a ferrule. Now a ferrule is the plastic cover which goes into your seat dropper or your gear shifter. So you get one of them, get snips and cut the blanked off end. Get one of your zip ties, so you thread the zip tie through. Curve it around the outside of the cable, push it back through there, and then that goes over the top, that goes underneath. So we're doing this in order to keep the cables separate. So there you go, that's the alternative method. So as I say, that keeps the cables separate, and then you just trim off the end there. Boom! Now the fourth method is these cable cleaners. You can probably find them around the office. Some bike brands actually have them on their bike as standard. Dead easy to fit. You simply just wind that on there and boom, goes on so easily. Highly, highly recommended. Look at that. And then you can cut that to suit the length of your cables. That is so easy. Look how neat that is. Next up is the trusty old zip tie. Always have zip ties in my car or van, and most of the time I cannot find them, but again, there you go, zip tie method. Super simple, and make sure that when you do this, use small ones rather than big ones, because that really is overkill. Get on there, get the old snippers, come off, boom. So there you go, some basic tips how to neaten up your cockpit on your bike, Shimano E8000 style. A few different ways there to connect your cables. I particularly like the insulating tape method because I think it's just so stealth. If you need to see some more videos on workshop tips, check out the one that Chris has done here, how to silence your e-bike. Let us know your thoughts on this video, and don't forget you can like, share and subscribe to EMBN. Thanks very much.